Hello everyone and welcome. This morning I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Well, America now has a new president and it's amazing how all of this turned out yesterday. 78-year-old Joseph R. Biden Jr. is the new president of the United States. Indeed, for the first time in the country's over 240 years of democracy, it also has the first female vice president, a woman of both Asian and African descent. So instead of having a second, what do they call it, a second lady of the United States, we're going to have a second gentleman for the first time in the name of Douglas Emhoff. As expected, Biden's inauguration on Wednesday was exceptional, a bit different from past ceremonies, no thanks to the pandemic, the violence that rocked the Capitol building 2 weeks before inauguration, and of course, the absence of the outgoing president. We'll be talking about all of that and what a Biden presidency means for Nigeria and indeed the African continent. I'm joined by lawyer and public affairs analyst Curtis Adigba. Good morning and thank you for coming.
Good morning, Nifemi. How are you?
And Damisa is a PhD scholar, assistant vice president, digital communication and media with Project Management Institute. She joins us live from Atlanta, Georgia. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning. How are you?
Terrific. Thank you for joining us. Let's begin in the studio. You saw the inauguration program, Mr. Adigba. What do you think of it?
Fantastic. As simple as you can get, but then not less significant.
Absolutely.
And I feel that some of our people who organize local events here can also learn a few things from there.
Has a lot to learn.
It's not how long it takes, but how well it can be done. You hear people saying we're standing on an existing protocol and just give a short speech, significant speech, and then they just let go. The conviviality, the atmosphere, you know, the weight of the event was not lessened by how fast it was conducted. So we can learn a lot of that from that. And I also, again, the hope that he gives to not only Americans, but the entire world, that constantly looking for American leadership, you know. There is a lot of hope that things will take a different turn, and we're already seeing that. Last night alone, he signed 17 executive orders.
We're going to get to that. About 1,000 guests yesterday at the inauguration ceremony, unlike what we've seen in the past. In 2009, Barack Obama gathered about 1.8 million people, perhaps the highest in U.S. Inauguration history. So this is more like a virtual event. But what would you say about the bipartisan nature, you know, of the participation yesterday?
That has always been the tradition, that once election is ended, Americans will come together in pursuit of unity and those specific goals that makes America great as a country. So it wasn't unexpected. Now, the reason why it's significant or assumed a new level of significance is because of the behavior of the outgoing president or the former president, because he wasn't, first of all, willing to concede the election, and then he wasn't going to allow for a smooth transition of power. But the institutions, again, held on fastly and firmly, and they delivered the presidency of Joe Biden.
Absolutely. Let's turn very quickly to Ann Damisa in Atlanta. It was a COVID-19 compliant event. You saw Kamala Harris sharing a double fist bumps with Obama and Michelle. 3 of them, very historic, first Black American president, first Black American First Lady, and indeed the first vice president, female vice president with African descent. Let's talk about how huge of a statement that was for you and whether or not you see this play any significant role in the issue of racial inequality as it is currently in America.
First of all, I appreciate you having me on your show this morning. I can speak for most Americans. Yesterday was historical, like you said. He was extraordinary. It was everything that most of us wish for, especially African Americans. Just seeing President Obama and the very first woman vice president, like you said, of African American descent and Indian descent. It was just, it tells every little girl out there that anything is possible in America. And the issue of equality is something that will happen very soon. Like it or not, America is still very much, this election tells you a lot about the division in America. But when you saw what happened yesterday, in spite of the fact that it was a virtual event, so much love was out there. You can tell that America is healing, the unity. It was just something that it's difficult to describe sometimes. But the most important thing is the fact that very, very soon, the issue of inequality, the gap will be very slim. And it tells everyone, both little girls and little boys, that anything is possible in America. If you dream, it can come true. All we need to do is just go for it. Just show love to your neighbor. If we forget about color, the color is there. We see the difference. Or if you just know to love your neighbor, treat others the same way. That's what our new president, Joe Biden, was preaching yesterday.
Indeed, and
And
let's stay
he
very
has always
quickly
preached.
with the significance of Kamala Harris' emergence as the first female vice president and what it means for women around the world. You talked about how proud African Americans are about this new development. It is not entirely new if you look at how we had probably an American of Kenyan descent emerge in 2009, which many would have thought impossible prior to that time. I'm concerned about the actual significance and the impact that it would have, you know, vis-a-vis all that has played out in recent time.
The impact, this tells you that it's possible. It is possible for a woman to become an American president. Because at first, when Hillary ran in 2016, we almost thought it was impossible. We thought, oh, a woman cannot be an American president, not even a vice president. This tells you now that you can get to any level, any political level in America as a woman. That's the impact it tells. This is a precedent that's been set now. That now we have a vice president as a woman. At a point, I just felt America wasn't ready for a female president. That was why Hillary didn't win, although she had a popular vote. It didn't happen, but this tells us now that women are beginning to get to the top in American political system.
Absolutely.
So
I'll get back to you shortly, Anne. Let me take this back to the studio. It makes me wonder if we really celebrated the first female president we had in Africa. I think it was in Liberia, given how much halo has surrounded the emergence of Kamala Harris. I mean, as vice president, did you think that we paid so much attention that that has happened in Africa?
Well, you know, it is simply because we have different scenario. It's shocking, as a matter of fact, deeply shocking that America is recording her first vice female president, or even president at all. When you think about America's status when it comes to democracy, as the leader of the world in terms of economy and politics, and they still have not produced a female president. When Clinton spoke, you know, during the women conference and said women's rights are human rights and that women ought to be treated equally like men, people felt that she was ahead of the curve. Now, what we have seen is that in Europe, even Latin America, they've had female president, Chile, you know, Germany, and so many other places. But it's still shocking that America just recorded our first vice female president. And that is why it's significant. Even Africa, we are ahead of America as far as this is concerned.
Absolutely.
So, and I think that's the reason why it was so significant, and a lot of people are falling over themselves to celebrate that.
And for me, that's the beauty of democracy. The fact that perhaps the recent happenings in America will also make Africans look back within it. And I appreciate the the little steps that we have made, the little progress we've made, because this is a democracy of over 2 centuries. In Nigeria, I mean, we're long away from that. And we saw Trump's absence yesterday, perhaps the 4th example of a president who would not witness his successor's inauguration, following President John Adams, the 2nd U.S. president, John Quincy Adams, the 6th president, and Andrew Johnson, the 17th president.
There's another one, Martin Van Buren.
Okay.
Martin Van Buren.
They say one thing that is common with these people is that they were all all one-term presidents.
Yes, one-term president.
But Anne, let me stay with you very quickly. Do you think that Trump's absence took anything substantially or significantly away from yesterday's event?
Not at all. Not at all. If anything, I was pleased. I believe most people were pleased that he wasn't there, because we don't know what could happen. As much as Trump is predictable, you can also not predict what he will do or what he will say. So in a way, it is a good thing he wasn't there. It didn't take anything away from, it's just a tradition. Even the vice president that was there, Pence, other than the fact that the camera kept showing his face, he didn't really, he didn't have any role to play. So Trump wasn't there, didn't take anything away. It's just an embarrassment to him because other past presidents were there. So it didn't take anything away.
So he is not bound by the U.S. Constitution to come, but the picture of seeing the outgoing and the incoming president together marks, some symbol of continuity in government, and, also tells a lot about how much of a peaceful transfer that country has had. For the incoming president who is preaching unity and hope, you don't think it was significant that both of them show some level of, how do I put it now, some level of friendship, given how heated the debate has been before and after the election?
I think it does. If he wanted to, it's not in the Constitution that he has to be there. What did he pass? It is nowhere, so it's not compulsory that he has to be there, but he didn't want to be there. It is important, like you said, it's the culture. It is important that he's there just to show peaceful transition, to show that it's a relationship, a cordial relationship. He didn't want to be there, he wasn't there, and nobody could force him. But what he did, which was great, I was surprised, was the fact that he left a letter. Like that's a tradition. You leave a letter in the White House. When the incoming president comes in, he sees the letter. It's a personal letter. And I believe President Biden was excited about that. And he said it in the news that President Trump left a generous letter. That was how Biden
Absolutely. Let's talk about the generous letter. I'll back with you, Anne. So Biden did say that Trump left a generous letter before departing White House. I doubt it was the same letter that we see on social media that reads, Joe, I won the election.
No, that's a funny letter.
That definitely can't be it. But Biden said he would not immediately reveal the content of the letter out of respect for Trump. But according to a senior Trump aide, it describes the letter as a personal note that prays for the success of the country and the new administration to care for the country. Do you think that President Trump actually showed some form of reconciliation watching his video and, perhaps his body language in the few hours before he left?
You know what? President Trump is an actor. It's difficult to draw a line between the real Trump and the actor Trump. And he does that. It's an act that he has honed over the years. He telegraphs a different kind of personality depending on what the benefits will be to him per time. Don't forget that this was a guy for over 2 months who kept saying he will be inaugurated for the second term. He won the election. The courts will prove that he did. He did everything possible to truncate Biden's victory. And when he didn't succeed, he quickly turned the page. He never conceded. He never said openly to his supporters. But then he promised there will be a smooth transition of power from him to Biden. And so I want to imagine that Trump could have written a letter to wish Biden well, which is traditional. But there's something that she talked about, which I wanted to expatiate a little bit on. There are certain traditions that do not have the force of the Constitution, but nevertheless, they are very strong tradition. And they send a message, clear message to the world that there is unity in the government of the United States. And I'll give you a few examples. In 2000, Al Gore was the vice president to Clinton. He ran as the candidate of Democrats. He lost that election by 537 votes after so many recounts in Florida. Al Gore still performed his responsibility, constitutional duty, in satisfying Bush's victory. In 2016, when it was clear to President Obama that Hillary was not going to win, she called Hillary and said, look, we need to keep this tradition going. You make that call, quick concession call. And Obama followed through by inviting the Trumps to the White House to give them a tour.
And it was there for the handover.
Just like Bush also did for the Obamas. And he was there. Look, the presence of our outgoing president during the transition does just one thing: send a clear message to the world that America's unity cannot be questioned. Now, in his absence, does that mean that the country is no longer strong or united? No. Of course, we know there will be division, and there will always be division. What the new president has promised to do is to try and bring the country together. He said, look, politics does not need to be a raging fire that consumes everything on its path. And he said, look, we decided to be divided. We can also decide not to be divided. So you see, he's setting the right tone. And with time, I have full confidence that others who are fighting so hard against him now, we come to terms with the reality that indeed Trump is not going to be president, and we have a new president whom we must assist to move the country forward.
Indeed. So Trump's absence, they say, is the first in a century and a half, and Mr. Adigba just highlighted how significant it would have been for him to be there. Perhaps cement better the need for unity and hope that the incoming president mentioned a lot during his speech yesterday. But do you foresee some form of reconciliation? Because we've seen that in the past. John Adams did not attend the successor's inauguration, but they eventually became friends in retirement, and that friendship lasted for quite a number of time. Is that something that you consider significant going forward, given how sharply divided Americans are right now?
Yeah, I believe sometime in the future it is possible for President Biden and Trump to have a cordial relationship or even a friendship. Because you rightly said, Trump has, I believe he has a public personality and he has a private personality. Trump is an insecure person who he loves the limelight. I believe privately he's softened. And I believe the generous letter, as Biden puts it at the left, I believe is something that is gracious, which is why President Biden used the word generous. So I foresee a situation whereby Trump will come around and become normal again. The person that people used to love, that most people used to love, even within the Democrats. So I think it's possible. Things will not just go this way, especially now that some Republicans are on the side of Democrats. So things will be, I see things getting better, definitely, especially the kind of person that President Biden is. It's all about peace. It's all about unity. That is his nature. He's very compassionate.
All right, we'll see how things play out in the future. But the Senate is expected to commence Trump's impeachment trial. With Democrats now in slim majority, what position do you expect from the new president, who has just talked about unity?
As you know, there are 3 equal branches of government in the United States. He cannot stop the Senate.
Yes,
what he
but
can
he can
do
take
really,
a political stands. His VP, for instance, is going to be leading the Senate.
Yeah, but the president has come out openly to say the Senate has got to do its job. He cannot dictate to them. All he can do is to speak privately to his party members and say, look, is this the right path to go? If it is not the right path, they know what to do. But here is the issue. On the issue of impeachment, nobody is even sure what is going to happen. There's this great debate going on among constitutional scholars in America. Well, can you still try a president who is no longer the president of America? And some have come out to say, look, Lawrence Tribe, professor of law, Harvard University, said what is important is when the impeachment took place. If the impeachment took place while the president was still sitting, he can be tried and convicted after he leaves office. Garbaros said, impeachment professor of Tulane University, said, no, you cannot, because his tenure has ended. But then the argument is that if I, as a president, knows that I can commit a crime or misdemeanor, and then I leave, I know I have few days to leave the office, and I leave and there are no consequences to me, what then happens? That was the reason why Richard Nixon knew what was coming, he resigned, and his successor had to pardon him for the crime that he committed. So I do not necessarily think that we have a certainty about the trial or that he will be convicted, though there is a higher appetite on the side of the Republicans to try and convict this president. You see the Senate Majority Leader until yesterday, Mitch McConnell, who is now Minority Leader, saying it's going to be a vote of conscience, unlike in December 2019 when he said, no, we are not going to convict this president. He has done nothing. What he has said publicly is, look, this president caused the riot in the Capitol, and he must take responsibility. How is he going to vote? He has not told anybody, but he's not completely against a trial and conviction. So that gives you a small opening that something could happen.
And a lot more is at stake. And if President Trump is convicted at the impeachment trial, they might also have to vote on his possibility of contesting for public office in the future. But President Biden made it clear he believes the Senate can balance this trial with the confirmation votes that is currently ongoing and consideration of his $1.9 trillion relief package for coronavirus. How do you expect all of this to play out in the coming days?
What I know is this. I think President Biden, his focus right now is on COVID-19. Is how to bring the numbers down, is how to ensure that Americans have the welfare package that he's been talking about. I think that will be his focus. So the beauty of American government is that the president doesn't have to be part of the trial, whatever Senate decides to do, or part of the judiciary system. So his focus, I believe, like you said, the first 100 days, is to focus on what he has to do. He won't be distracted by Trump's trial and all of that, which is the reason why some Americans or some of the lawmakers said, let's forget about Trump and not let Trump be the one shining when President Biden takes over. So President Biden is not going to focus on Trump's trial. The Senate will do that. It's not going to have an impact. The trial will not have an impact on what President Biden wants to do for the American citizens. Right now, the welfare package is what is on his mind and how to bring coronavirus down and ensure that each American has the vaccine. So that will be his focus.
Absolutely. He talked about 100 million doses in the first 100 days. But let's quickly turn our attention now to the inaugural speech, which is considered very historic in America. It was then that we had the common quote here in Nigeria that think not what your country would do for you, but what you would do for your country. I think that was D.F. Kennedy's inaugural speech as well. Yeah. So we had Biden talk a lot about calling for unity, pledging to be a president for all Americans, including those who did not support his campaign. How convincing was his speech yesterday?
His speech had 4 structural parts. One was to give hope to every American by saying, look, I will be president for all. Those who voted for me and those who did not vote for me. I'm going to be your president. It is time to turn the curve. It is time to come together as Americans. Whatever we put our hearts to it, we can't do it. That's one. The second was to deprecate the culture, the political culture that the former president brought in America. We're not saying there were no division before, but he stoked it to the extent that Biden described as manufacturing of facts. He said that there's a need for that to come to an end in America, and that every difference, political difference, should not be a raging inferno that consumes everything on its path. And then he also talked about America going back to the basis of building global alliance. He said, we're not going to be just led by the power of example, but by the example of our power. You know, in other words, we're just going to lead you by the right values, and we expect that you follow, so we can build a better world for everybody. And finally, he made the welfare of the American people the cornerstone of his government. And he said, look, I will always be there to level up with you. I'm going to tell you the truth about our situation. I won't scare you, but I will tell you the truth. And that does not make me, you know, vulnerable at all, because I know you. I know what you need, and I'll be there to provide that. So
and talk
that
to
was
us.
very hopeful.
Absolutely. Talk to us about how the American media is reacting to Biden's inaugural speech.
American media is divided. You have the left and you have the right media. So definitely, most of the media are excited, and even with Fox News, that is of the right, they're kind of preaching, okay, let's move forward with this, and the projection is actually on the person of President Biden, wanting to bring peace, unity, and just move on. They see that as well. So I would say majority of the media are excited about new beginnings, with a new dawn, and we really want to move on. The media, the media on the right, they really don't want Trump to be tried. They just think he's unnecessary. He has left office, so let it be. But the media on the left, from what I'm hearing, they think President Trump should be tried. And they believe he committed so much criminal offenses that needs to be tried. And by the end of the day, the voice of the media is about, okay, let's just enjoy this time. It is a peaceful time. It is time to unite. It's time to just forge ahead. So it is all about how we deal. That's the focus right now.
Absolutely.
From what I see in the media.
So the U.S. president is bringing decades of experience in the Congress. That's about 4 decades, 8 years as vice president. But he's also 78 years, making him the oldest president in American history. Put all of these together. Some say on one hand is the experience, but on the other hand is also an old man in the helms of affairs. Mr. Adigba, talk to us about your thoughts around this.
Now, the job of a president is tasking, it's rigorous, but it's not manual labor. It is setting the right tone.
But it is mental labor,
Yeah.
which
it's not manual labor.
which is even more burdensome than
especially in America.
Yeah, but then you have a situation where the president has got the resources to hire the best hands to do this job, where he provides leadership and guidance. And we can see that in what he has done so far in picking his cabinet. You could see that as much, he tried very much to combine youth and experience. And then he also was very sensitive about race and gender, taking into consideration American diversity. Compared to President Trump, who had just about three women, maybe, Betsy DeVos in education, Ellen Chao in transportation, and initially was Nikki Haley in the United Nations. Now we're seeing from the current president, Janet Yellen, Treasury, Marsha Fuchs, Housing and Urban, Gina Raimondo, Commerce, all right? Avery Hines, DNI, okay? And then you see so many, even among his personal team in the White House, Deputy Chief of Staff, Jennifer Martin Dillon, a woman, Chief Press Secretary, Jim Paskey, a woman. So this is the president that is trying to unite the country by words and action. Then look at the racial composition. For the first time, we are going to have, if he's confirmed, Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, a black guy. Okay? We are going to have also Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, a Latina. So you see, even in the inaugural ceremony yesterday, you could see the attempt, deliberate attempt to introduce diversity.
Absolutely.
You know, so I am very hopeful that his experience will count. He might not have the mental strength or the physical strength, but he's got the experience. And because he's been able to put a team together, a team that can, very experienced team. Look at the Attorney General designate, Mary Garland, who was nominated by President Obama for the Supreme Court and was stopped by the Republicans. So you could look at Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, you know, United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield. These are well-experienced hands. That tells you where the president is going. He knows his limitation and he's worked very hard to ensure that he's gotten the right character and quality and competence to run the government.
You sound pretty much like, okay, Biden knows exactly how old he is and he has gotten enough energy to fill up his cabinet to make up for that. I'd love to hear Anne's perspective on this, but we'll go on a break. When we return, it does appear that Biden has started his first day in office by raising some actions of former President Trump, rolling out 15 orders and 2 other action items. We'll talk more about that after this break. Stay with us. And Damisa, communication strategist and consultant, joins us live from Atlanta in the U.S. Curtis Adigba, lawyer, public affairs analyst, is right here with me in Nigeria. All right, so, Anne, we're talking about 78-year-old Joseph R. Biden Jr. Recall that Barack Obama spent 8 years in office. And I can literally show you the massive difference between his look when he assumed office and when he left. His hair was full of gray hair. Let's talk about how much burden the 78-year-old Biden would have to carry at this time.
Good question. I think a lot of Americans worry about that. I worry about that as well. And in fact, somebody said it in I think one of the news anchors said it the other day, I think yesterday, like he was so sure, said, oh, definitely Biden will be a one-term president. We can't be so sure. I believe he has the mental capacity to handle things. And the difference you saw in President Obama's physical appearance after 8 years in government was because of how rigorous being American president can be. I know President Biden has the mental capacity. He has a great team. Like my friend just mentioned, all the names, all the talents that he has around him. By the end of the day, after the first term, he still has to go out there. After the first term, President Biden will be 82 after 4 years. He still has to go out there and campaign. It is not like Nigeria, where someone who is running for president is not out there with the community. Biden worked like crazy during this campaign. As a community mobilizer, I knew this can be very stressful, especially on an old man. He has to be everywhere. Even yesterday when he was running during the inaugural celebration and he was trying to jog on the streets, just run, I was like, oh my God, take it easy. It is a rigorous physical, it's not easy running for an election. And he's going to have to do it again.
Maybe it's time for us to also acknowledge that life expectancy is higher in America than it is in Nigeria. Maybe it will help us to put it in a proper perspective. So, as you said, he will be 82 after 4 years. We're going to leave that discussion whether he's going to run for a second term for another day because he would probably leave office by 86. Okay, we'll see how that goes. But he seemed to have started pretty fast, rolling out some 17 executive orders. He reversed Trump's policies on coronavirus pandemic, immigration, climate change, We're told now that he has cancelled the ban which restricted travel to the U.S. for mostly Muslim nations. Nigeria was also captured in one of those bans. Is it good news for Nigerians who have their spouses abroad and who have been waiting to join themselves again with them?
It's good news for everyone in the world. When Trump enacted the travel ban against 5 Muslim countries, you know, there was a lot of uproar in the United States. There were a lot of people who didn't believe it was the right thing to do, but it was a myth to his base because he campaigned against immigrants coming into America. But then when you look at it, when you distill it down, it still simply didn't make sense because these 5 countries, there is just no record of anybody from these 5 countries having carried out a terrorist attack against America in America. In fact, the countries that were involved in striking America in 2001, September 11, 2001, actually left out of the ban. Saudi Arabia, UAE, and co. In fact, they became his best friends while he was president. So it was an attempt to profile and target a specific group of people.
But for us, it was information sharing. They say that we did not adhere with the new and more stringent security measures put in place by the U.S. Do you think Nigeria was guilty of that?
Look, a lot of things we roll back, like you've seen with Biden last night, because he's still telegraphing the same message. I'm the polar opposite of this president. I want to be your friend. I think we can build a better world if we work together. But like I said here sometimes ago, American strategic interests will remain the same, whether it is a Biden or Trump. What happens is the slight difference we are going to see is going to be in tone and how it's going to be delivered. You want to give a child injection. Do you just grab the child while he's crying and you give the injection, or do you pet the child with some candies and say, don't worry, it's going to be fine, this will make you good, and then you give the injection? It's just going to be changed in tone and how it is delivered.
So what my guest here in Nigeria, Anne, is saying is that we shouldn't expect any massive difference in America's foreign policy. We saw Biden's priority. It has to do with coronavirus, rejuvenating American economy. He talked about the relief measure that he has in that regard, $1.8 trillion. He also talked about racial inequality. It's pretty much American first. It's just another person on seat. What do you think?
Oh, definitely it has to be American first. It has to be. His focus shouldn't be more on other nations. Of course, America is the big brother of the world. But at the end of the day, it has to focus, especially considering the darkness that we've witnessed in the last 4 years. Biden is the beacon of light. And so far, the light has to shine more on this part of the world. You have to heal at home first before you start. Take care of yourself first before you start taking care of other people. It is important. Of course, America will take care of other countries as far as travel is concerned. But I believe things will get back to normal as it used to be with travel. Now that he has lifted the travel ban, I believe when things are a bit better in America, things will definitely fall into place as it relates to the traveling ban.
Let me hold you on very briefly to take calls from our viewers here. George has called in from Ikeja. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Ms. Emi, and good morning to Ms. Adiba and the other lady in the U.S.
Thank you.
In my view, Ms. Emi, it is in the best interest of the Republican Party if they allow Trump to be tried for his crime and be banned from holding public office. Because as I see things, the way the Democrats have mobilized people of color and the way the President Biden has selected his cabinet now, it will be almost a mission impossible for Republicans to win an election in the next 20 years, if not more. Especially if they continue to throw up Trump and his oppressive policies. The people of color, they see what Trump was doing as against them, and they have mobilized. There's no way, they have the number. There's no way you can bring Trumpism back and get majority unless they come into a conciliatory mood and fuse with the people again. But with Trump, they cannot do that. Wisdom demands that they should do away with Trump unless they don't want to win any election again in America. That's the way I see it.
All right, thank you, Judge, for your contribution. Not quite a number of people will agree with your position, though. That election was keenly contested, in my opinion. I even think Trump almost won. Take away his stance as regards COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter. I think it would have been a free ride for Trump in that election. Or what do you think, Anne?
I believe so too. So he messed up his own election when he didn't focus on COVID-19. He was very nonchalant about it. He didn't talk about masking, which is why part of the reason why Biden made it a priority. Trump will laugh at President Biden, who was a candidate then, that he was wearing very big mask. He made jest of it. You know how Trump is. So that alone made half of Americans who voted for him think, oh, the president is right. A lot of people died. A lot of people who were Republicans came up and said, this happened because my father died, my mother died because of President Trump. His nonchalant towards COVID-19, towards the coronavirus, is one of his own doing. That was why
Absolutely,
he lost the election.
You know, you look at one of the new orders of the new president, and it's amazing that Biden has made mask wearing in all federal buildings and during interstate travel mandatory. Yeah. It's amazing that this is still an issue in a place where over 400,000 people have died. They say more than all the casualties recorded in World War II. Does it in any way amplifies, you know, the position of Trump in this pandemic?
Okay, here's the
and perhaps the fault that he has to take and the responsibility he has to take.
You know, I would rather say Trump defeated Trump. Okay, he inherited 76 straight months job-creating economy. He didn't have to do the hard job that Obama did. All he did was to roll back some of the restrictions that Obama put in place. And then he had a good economy. The stock market was doing very well. You know, he told us every day about how fantastic, how beautiful, how great, you know, the economy was doing. But then when it came to the issue of COVID, you see, the DNA of Trump, how he was raised by his dad, is never to project weakness on any issue.
It's Chinese virus, it will go away.
Yes,
Just hold on a minute. Let me take Michael's call from Imo. Michael, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, sorry for making you wait. Go ahead now with your contribution.
Hey, I'm waiting. Hello.
Go ahead, Michael. I can hear you now. You have a few seconds.
Yeah. Greetings to you and the lady and the lawyer there, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you.
I'm happy New Year.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my take is this. I want Nigerian government or Nigerians to learn this lesson learned to our government and to our country. That no matter what anybody does, the masses, the Senate or the House of Representatives or Nigerians have the final say by determining how the country's affairs should be run, rather than cutting corners. You see, the Americans was not divided in terms of decision taking to making sure that there is a free transition from Trump to Biden, knowing fully well that what Trump did was not acceptable in a democratic country or government. So I want...
Oh, we lost that. But I think you made your point, Michael.
Like I was saying, you know, Trump cannot project weakness. He knew this was dangerous. He told Bob Woodward so. It was super contagious. But he said he didn't want to scare the American public. And having taken that position, he stood on that ground. He never once told them, this is dangerous, and you have to take care, or you have to take precautions, you have to wash your hand. So he needed to project that strength. And because the presidents set the tone, and there are people who hang on the walls of presidents and die with it, so many men in America, especially the working class people, macho men in America who believe that Trump is their president, he talks like them, he walks like them, he says things like them. Once he told them this was something that was not dangerous, it's simply going to go away. You know, like a miracle, the way he came, he would just disappear. They believed him. And like Anne said, a lot of them paid with their lives. During the convention, there was a lady who came on the Democratic Convention stage and said, my father's pre-existing condition was that he believed President Trump, that COVID was not dangerous. And today my father is dead. So that had a lot of impact on how people saw him. And then in the course of the campaign, unlike Biden, who was very careful and sensitive about COVID, he was packing rallies full with thousands of people because he told them COVID wasn't a dangerous thing. No.
And the figures, you know, the figures are there for everyone to see. Another other hand would be something that borders on federal workplace sex discrimination protections to LGBTQ Americans. Africa is sharply divided, or rather opposes this very strongly. I remember it came up with the last interview that one of the media in America had with Uganda's president. It is clear what Africa's position is in this light. But tell us how Americans are receiving this new order by the new president.
Say that again?
I'm talking about the order that borders on sex discrimination protection for LGBTQ.
Okay. It is all about, when you talk about equality, we're talking about everybody, regardless of their sexual preference, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender. So LGBTQ community, they're people too. I am a Christian. So at the end of the day, the president is for the people, and these are the people. So that is the reason President Biden is a Christian, is a Catholic. It has nothing to do with you believing in what they do. It is about you treating them as human beings. And that was where a lot of Africans went wrong when it came to President Obama. President Obama is not saying, oh, here I am, I approve your life as a gay person or as a homosexual. I'm just treating you as human being. And that's what God Almighty said. We should treat people as human. Don't say because somebody is insane or their lifestyle is different from yours, you have to treat them differently or you have to maltreat them.
I get your point.
When you talk about inclusion,
and I'm going to get Mr. Adiba's reaction very quickly. But let's take Mazi Okorafor's call from Abia State. Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning, Mr. Good morning, and our sister from years. You see, after 4 years' time, just mark it, President Trump is coming back. The man who makes that food available for the people. President Trump administration has really touched different countries in the whole world. Now let me give you an example. Just take it. You see, all these countries where we have all this issue of crisis of crisis, violence of crisis, what happened? With the presence of Trump, many of them were afraid. So we pray that Biden will also stick to that policy and make sure it works. At the end of the day, what matters is your people. He said, his simple first before any other thing, which I want other African presidents to emulate. It is not a question of, we are good in when we sit and we analyze. We don't analyze because this man is coming, he has just presented a paper. The presentation of the paper does not matter. What matters is the implementation. That is what we should be working on.
Absolutely.
The implementation of the paper.
And we'll be here to track all of that. Thank you for your contribution.
Mazi should also know that his own people also voted him out. And when you're talking about his people, you also have to understand that President Trump didn't treat all Americans equally. He had his own group of people that he felt were more Americans than other Americans.
You were going to react to the sex discrimination protections.
Look, I think here's the misconception. A lot of Africans see this sexual orientation thing just from the prism of sex alone. In America, it's seen on the basis of equality. He's a human being. She's a human being. We don't care about what they do behind their walls. We see them as human beings. As Americans, they have equal rights with us. So when the president says, look, this is where we are going, don't forget that Obama, who rolled back DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, don't ask, don't tell. This was just an attempt to bring about equality. And the other thing we are not thinking about in Africa is that public opinion has shifted in favor of this issue. From about 20 years ago, when it was less than 5% Americans that supported gay, today you have over 50% of Americans who are supporting this idea and say, look, don't discriminate against these people because of their sexual preference. Look at them as human beings and treat them as equal. So that's the basis for which Biden is doing what he's doing. It's not simply looking at this thing from the point of view of sex. Now, coming to Africa, you know, we like to live in denial. The truth is that our government do not support this officially. So they say. But the truth is, these practices are pervasive in Africa.
We're going to
extremely pervasive.
Leave this conversation on for the future. One thing is acknowledging that he's the president for both the gay and the straight, but it's entirely another concept entirely to, you know, empower and legalize, rather. That's the word, legalize. And that's one thing the African continent is yet to wrap its mind around. But let's take Joshua's call very quickly from Iriwolede in Ogun State. Good morning, Joshua.
Good morning, and good morning to Curtis and your guest. I want to say, maybe at another program, you please allow us to talk about how America achieved nationhood, how they became a nation. Now we have states with independent structures, which was quite helpful, like when a state governor is taking a position and the president cannot dictate what the state governor does. So how they became a nation is something we should look at. I'm sure if we connect to that, we could as well start to grow from there, because we don't have a nation yet.
All right, Joshua, I think you made your point. Thank you for your contribution. The Biden administration is expected to roll out a total of 53 executive actions over the next 10 days. And what it has mapped out for itself for the next 100 days is very phenomenal. And we're rounding up now. What lessons do you think are here for the African leadership?
I think African leaders can learn a lot from the American system of government. At the end of the day, you do not have to, when elections are done, we should think about how we can come together and make things work. And when one
but
person,
America
one
isn't showing leadership in that regard. I hope you're not making reference
just is an exception. Trump's case is an exception, and even at that, the incoming
because
president
we seem to have even
is
done
taking it
better.
away.
We seem to have done better. The former president, Goodluck Jonathan,
maybe so. Jonathan Goodluck
yes,
is an example. Somebody Trump can learn from.
Absolutely,
But
I like the way you put that.
But so far, America is still on that route of just taking leadership the way it should be.
Absolutely.
We should, and Biden has done that. President Biden has done that no matter our differences, we have, and if you watch the inaugural program yesterday, the three presidents, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, they came together and made a presentation that we have more in common than we have than our differences.
It's a good place to leave it.
African leaders can learn from that. Yeah?
It's a good place to leave it. Let me just take Mr. Adigba's final comment on this. I'm thrilled by the speed of execution. Are we learning?
You know why? Because before you run to be president, you've got the vision. Okay? And you build a microcosm of that vision and what you want to do in office. And then you go out looking for talents that can help translate that vision into reality. So before you were sworn in, if you win the election, you already knew the direction you were heading. And you already have your personnel who are waiting in the wings to be confirmed to execute your vision. Now, the difference in Africa is that sometimes we lay more emphasis on getting the power than on what we want to do with the power. So once we get the power, before we start thinking about what we actually want to accomplish, and because we didn't have a vision that we can translate quickly, we then find it difficult to assemble the quality of people or the talent that we need to translate that vision into reality. And so you have all kind of lobbying, left, right, and center. They bring about zonal consideration, religious consideration, ethnic consideration, and every other thing. At the end of the day, the man on the seat is just confused. So he brings all kind of people just to fill a cabinet, and in most cases find jobs for the boys and girls, and so that he can win the next election.
We have to go now.
We have to learn from that, you know, it's rigorous.
Absolutely.
Rigorous. You know?
Lawyer, public affairs analyst, Curtis Adigba, thank you for joining us this
Thanks
morning.
for having me.
And Damisa, journalist, communications consultant, joins us live from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for your contribution, Anne.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that's our show today. Thanks for being a part of it. Congratulations, President Biden. And we look forward to how the Biden presidency will impact strongly on U.S.-Africa relations. We'll talk more about that subsequently. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. See you again tomorrow.